The college basketball experience net rankings and Moneyline Mac top 25 edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with that promo code TCESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. That is the Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sportsbook available in 45 states. Download the Rebet app in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That is the Rebet promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college hoops, college football, and NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome everybody into the college basketball experience. Happy Monday, December the 2nd. We made it through Feast Week, and now we got the net rankings. I'll give out my Moneyline Mac top 25, dive into it, what it means going forward, scheduling opportunities, and much more. But first off, if you're wondering who you're listening to, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. Also known as Mac Tonight over here at the College Experience. Shout out to the chat, alive and well. I'm sure you guys are going through the Monday pain, man, after a long weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, feast week in the books. But don't worry, we got plenty of challenges. We got the ACC SEC challenge. We got the Big 12 Big East challenge, what it could mean. And let's talk about it. So the NCAA released their net rankings earlier today. If you had not seen, just go running through the top 10 real quick. Tennessee at number 1, Auburn at number 2, Gonzaga at number 3, Duke at number 4, despite having 2 losses. Pitt, each shit Pitt comes in at number 5, Florida at number 6, Marquette at number 7, Kentucky at number 8, Kansas 9, Illinois 10. That rounds out the top 10. What I will say is extremely early. I think some of the main things I was looking at is conferences, where they stack up in terms of how many are in the top 50, how many are outside the top 100. And my biggest takeaways were, the Big East is in trouble. We've talked about that at length with how many bye games that they've lost. But the ACC, yes, they have some top-heavy teams. They're in trouble because they have 4 teams well outside the top 100. So I could see them self-sabotaging themselves, just like they have over the last couple of years, where teams like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. Actually, let me pull up that 4-team thing that's been making the rounds. I know Colby and Noah were busting Kramer's chops here, but the top 5 worst net rankings among Power 5 teams: Georgia Tech 175, Syracuse 177, Miami 191, Seton Hall 200. And then Virginia Tech 233. So that's 4 out of 5 ACC teams among the top 5 worst. The only one being Seton Hall, and Seton Hall's lost multiple bye games. What basically that means, Georgia Tech has the North Florida loss, and they've kind of gotten blown out in a couple games at home. Syracuse, they don't really have a win to pat themselves on. They don't have a horrible loss, but at the same time, they have not done anything to really move the needle at all. So 177, I think, is right. Miami's been atrocious. Losers of 4 in a row, 3 in Charleston. Then they lose to Charleston Southern on Saturday. Seton Hall, we just talked about it. And then Virginia Tech losing to Jacksonville. They have not blown out anybody in their bye games, and then they lost both in Fort Myers. So here's the problem for, let's say, I'm trying to think who's going to be a bubble team in the ACC right now. Duke, I would say Duke, Carolina, Pitt, and I would probably say those are probably the safe teams that are in the field right now if I was going based off of the ACC. Maybe you could throw Clemson in there with their resume at 7-1. I think so. Those 4 are safe. But if you're a Louisville, you're a Florida State, an SMU, NC State, Stanford, or Wake Forest. Wake Forest has been on the bubble for years and years. You can't lose to one of these 4 teams that are outside the top 150 because it's going to be a quad 3 or hell, it might even be a quad 4. I don't think it'll be a quad 4 loss, but it'll be a quad 3 loss. So those 4 teams up top, I think, are pretty much safe in the field, although we have seen Pitt and Clemson over the years drop these bad games. Why did Pitt not make the NCAA tournament as much as they bitched last year? Well, because you lost to a winless Missouri team at home. And then the year before that, they lost to Florida State, who was atrocious. Clemson has had a history of dropping bad games. Last year, Wake Forest, all they had to do was beat Georgia Tech or Notre Dame, and they would have been in the field after the Duke win. They didn't do so. Now they ended up on the wrong side of the bubble. So, ACC fans, I'm just throwing this out there. Brace yourself for not getting as many teams as you think you should in again, because teams like Miami, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Boston College losing to fucking Dartmouth. Dartmouth is the worst team in the Ivy League. You can't lose bye games and bye games to bad teams. Charleston Southern and Dartmouth aren't even good mid-major programs. So losing those games are going to absolutely kill this league. On the positive side, for some leagues, the SEC continues to absolutely roll. They have 11 teams in the top 50. Big Ten has 11 in the top 50. Big Ten's more balanced. SEC more top-heavy, in my opinion. Big 12 at 9. So Big 12 pretty solid. A little bit disappointing for my expectations. I expected them to be on level with the SEC, but they have not won some of these big marquee games. But what the Big 12 has done, unlike the ACC and Big East, they don't have a bye game loss. Nobody's even come close to losing a bye game outside of Colorado, who skated by Northern Colorado. If you dig deeper to that ACC and Big East points I made, the Big 12 has 2 teams outside the top 100. So there's not going to really be many bad losses. And the teams outside of the top 100 are, I think, TCU at 118 or something. Pulling it up right now. TCU 121, Oklahoma State 112. The Big Ten has a couple duds in their league. That's so they would have an opportunity, kind of like the ACC in the Big East, to shit themselves a little bit and self-sabotage, because they have 3 teams outside the top 100 that would qualify as a quad 3 loss, and that's Washington at 116, Minnesota at 155, and USC has been awful at 169. The SEC only has 1 team outside the top 100. That's South Carolina at 135. They've been very underwhelming. So pretty much the SEC, I would say, is going to get 10 teams in the tournament. If I had to guess right now, I would say the Big Ten probably 9, maybe 10. Actually, the SEC could even get 11, because we know they're going to cater to the SEC with TV money and all of that. And I would say the Big 12 is going to get 9 to 10 as well. So those 3 conferences are definitely head and shoulders above everybody else. If you look at some of the top mid-major programs that we love in the Mountain West, Utah State sitting at 7-0, Jared Calhoun, 14th in the net because they've taken care of business and they've blown out everybody in their bye game. It's not rocket science what the formula is, and everybody gives the Big 12 shit for blowing out these teams. Well, the alternative is you could lose to Dartmouth or Charleston Southern, North Florida, or some of these other mid-major programs and tank your net, or Monmouth, who was 0-8 with Seton Hall. Nevada, Steve Alford sitting at 32, Boise 38, and then San Diego State is at 60. I was a little surprised by that, just because they beat Houston and they beat Creighton this week. New Mexico sitting at 66. So the problem, though, for the Mountain West this year, the floor is not as high as it was last year. So these top 5 teams, if they're going to be a 5-bid league again, I know they were 6 last year. If they're going to be able to be a 5-bid league, they got to take care of business and not lose to the bottom half, because that was an absolute net killer if you lose to a outside the top 100 team. A couple other mid-majors that really came out strong. I talked about Utah State. I saw UC Irvine coming in at 24. We got St. Mary's at 25. I don't even consider them really a mid-major anymore. They've been a model of consistency. And then Drake at 45. Drake with the strong finish. So Drake still has a little bit of work to do. We've talked about it. We want the Missouri Valley to get to a point where maybe they could get to a two-bid league. But I think if you're one of these schools, you got to be inside that top 30 to avoid a loss in the conference tournament. Oregon State at 49. Oregon State's been a pleasant surprise. A couple ones that are way down. Xavier. I saw Xavier was outside the top 100. I didn't think anybody had that coming in. They were just ranked last week. High Point has been a little bit of disappointing. They're at 195. Colorado State, of course, at 207. UAB at 260. And where's Grand Canyon? Yeah, Grand Canyon's at 130. McNeese at 74. So just some teams that maybe we thought had aspirations of being a at-large team just are the metrics don't back it up. And kind of a reminder that nobody really outside the top 75, I believe, maybe there was one year, has made the NCAA tournament. So you got to be at least in that top 75 to be in consideration. So just a couple food for thought, just breaking down my initial eye test with the net rankings. Reminder, this does update every single day, and it's not a lot of data right now. We're only 7-8 games in, so it will change dramatically. We have the SEC ACC Challenge this week. We have the Big 12 Big East, and we'll break down all those matchups this week over here at the College Basketball Experience. But first, let's pay the bills because over here, first, you got to download the SGPN app today. It's completely free. Reminder, it is free. So get on over there. We got our picks page. We're working on updating that. And wherever you get your apps today, please help us. And reminder, the challenge for 15K by January 1st. Get on over there. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps grow the channel so we can do more and more content just like this for college basketball. And help us help you and let's grow this channel together. We are also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy Feast Week is over, but they got plenty of stuff to get down on. You got football, basketball. Sign up with our promo code right there, TCE SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit. Offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code TCE SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is now a social sportsbook available in 45 states. Download the Rebet app and get in there and download with a 100% deposit match up to $100. That is a Rebet promo code SGPN. Shout out to the chat. You guys are alive and well. Elliot, what do I think of Pitt at 5? I mean, they kind of earned it, as much as I hate to say it. They have a good resume. Beat West Virginia by 20+, and West Virginia has ended up being a quality win from what they did in Atlantis. One at Ohio State, as chaotic as that game was, Ohio State giving away that game, but it's still a win in the net metrics. And who else did they beat? They beat LSU, I believe, who has been also a nice little pleasant surprise. USC at 169. Oklahoma State at 112, yes. And Trevor, yes, your Badgers. Where are your Badgers? Where are the Badgers? They got to be top 15, right? They're 17. I don't know why they're so low, but they'll have plenty of opportunities in this upcoming challenge. Let's get into my top 25. Let me see if I can share this with you guys. You know how we do it here. Boom. Noah set me up on a new. There we go. Look at that. Look like I know what I'm talking about. All right, my top 25 versus the net. Actually, there's not a lot of differences. I had the Anteaters, man. I had the Anteaters cracking the top 25 for this week. Winners of 8 in a row, the nation's longest win streak. Shout out to Russell Turner and company. They went up to Canada, got 3 quality wins over Kent State, Kennesaw, and Towson. 3 games in 3 days. They continue to roll. They're 24th in the net, like I just said. They could be an at-large team if they continue to roll and not lose games. So something to monitor out there in the Big West. Oh, speaking of the Big West had a strong little showing in the net. They had, I think, five teams in the top 100. So I can't remember the Big West having five teams in the top 100. So shout out to the Big West, maybe the new or upcoming Mountain West. So shout out to them. Drake at 24 for me. They didn't really play anybody this week. They beat Georgia Southern, but they still have dominated the competition. They won 3 games in 3 days at Charleston. I think I had 25 last week or 24. So I'll keep them right where they're at. And they've looked impressive so far under year one head coach Ben McCullum. Number 23, I got the Baylor Bears. Baylor's, they're a hard team to rank just because they've played a hard schedule. They've played 4 powerhouses here, and they're 2-2 in those games. So Baylor, they don't have the big win yet. They don't have a horrible loss. I mean, you lost to Gonzaga. Yeah, you got blown out, but it's Gonzaga out there in the Great West. And they also lost to Tennessee, who's number 1 in the net, and as you can see, up in my rankings as well. So Baylor, I think, is solid. 23. 22, I had to put them in there, man. From what they've done resume-wise, Arizona State, the Sun Devils, it is the year of the Sun Devil. Big 12 championship in football on Saturday. I mean, they beat St. Mary's. They beat New Mexico. They've beaten Grand Canyon. Their only loss is to Gonzaga on their home floor by 8 points. They beat Santa Clara. The Sun Devils have been beyond impressive. Bobby Hurley and company overachieving here in year one in the Big 12. 21, I got Brian Dutcher and San Diego State. Great weekend out there in Vegas for them, beating Houston in overtime, also beating Creighton. Their only loss was to Oregon, who, as you can see, is way up there as well. This team's good, man. They're young, but they're getting better and better. They made strides from that Gonzaga loss. So I think they're my top 2-loss team other than maybe Alabama. So I got San Diego State, this young group, at 21. And 20, let's say in the Mountain West, I got Utah State. Beyond impressive so far. 3 straight wins, 7-0 to start the Calhoun era. North Texas, the Bonnies down there. Dude, the Bonnies were undefeated when they played them, by the way. And they beat Iowa and Kansas City. So I think the culture of Utah State is right there to win the league again. And, yeah, they continue to roll out there in Logan. 19, I hate to do it. I put Pitt in there. They've earned it. I had the win at Ohio State. Put them over the top for me. I would have had them just outside, but they've wins over Ohio State, LSU, West Virginia, and their only loss is to undefeated Wisconsin out there at the Greenbrier. So I had the Pitt Panthers. They are banged up right now with Dunn still out with the hand injury, so we'll see how long that lingers. But Pitt's at number 19 for me. 18, I got Duke. Duke's been okay. They've lost their top 2 games to Kansas and Kentucky, and then they beat Arizona. The only thing for them is Arizona doesn't seem to be as good as maybe we projected. So Duke at 18, I think that's a fair ranking. I know everybody is in love with them, but they have not had the huge win yet to crack into that top 10, top 15. So Duke still work in progress, year 1, or not year 1, but year 3 of John Shire with Cooper Flagg in his first year. 17, I got Ole Miss. I know they're disappointing on the net rankings, but from an eye test standpoint, I think Ole Miss is pretty damn good. They beat BYU this weekend. They took Purdue to the wire. They're old. They're athletic. It looks like a Chris Beard team from Texas Tech. I've been super impressed with Ole Miss. So I got them at 17 so far, and we'll see how they finish headed into SEC play. 16, Noah Beanick is going to be happy as hell. I got Michigan. Michigan's looked the part. Michigan is sitting at 6-1. They blew out Xavier in the final. They opened it up against Virginia Tech, winners of 5 in a row. They got a win over TCU. Their only blemish on their schedule is the Wake Forest loss in game number 2, which is going to help Wake down the road as well. More and more Michigan gets better. Michigan's got size. They looked the part. So that's where I got the Wolverines. At number 15, I got Memphis. Memphis is really rolling right now. They had a great week. They beat UConn. I don't know how good UConn is, so that's why maybe I have Memphis still a little bit lower than what everybody else is going to have them. They beat Sparty. That was a really good win, and then they kind of got blown out by Auburn in the finals. I mean, they ran out of gas. They also beat San Fran on that neutral site out there at the Warriors Arena. They have a win over Missouri, a really good resume. Penny Hardaway and company are looking good for an at-large bid if they stumble in the AAC, which looks like a one-bid league as of today. But we've seen this. Memphis was looking really fucking good at this time last year, and they completely soiled down the stretch. So Memphis as of right now, December the 2nd, in my top 15. Alabama goes 2-1 out in Vegas. They're at 14. I like the Tide. Their only loss was to Oregon in the finals, and then they've lost at Purdue, but they got wins over Illinois down there in Birmingham. They also beat Houston, and of course they beat Rutgers as well. They're going through the gauntlet right now. They go to Carolina this week. So Carolina's not on my top 25. They've not done anything, but they have a chance to crack back in it when they get the Tide coming in there this week. At 13, I know people saying Cincinnati didn't play anybody so far yet, but they have absolutely drilled everybody, including 2 road wins at Northern Kentucky and at Georgia Tech. So I mean, they've taken care of everybody that's been in front of them. They go to Villanova this week. We'll see if that could be a little bit of a hiccup spot or if Cincinnati's a real deal. I like what I've seen from the Bearcats so far. Maybe a top 4 team in the Big 12. Number 12, Oklahoma's doing it again. Preseason on a roll here, sitting at number 12. They win the battle for Atlantis with wins over Providence, Arizona, and Louisville in the final. They did not play anybody before this, but hey, they took care of business in Atlanta. They win the battle for Atlantis title. And like we said, Porter Moser and company last year did the same thing. So they got to be able to hold fort here and continue the momentum into league play. But they're 12 for right now. At number 11, I got the Wisconsin Badgers. They continue to win ball games 8-0. They didn't really do much this week. They beat Chicago State in their only game, but it's mainly a ranking off of their first 7 games. They've been solid. Everybody that wants Greg Gard fired, sorry, he ain't going anywhere because they're absolutely rolling right now, sitting at 8-0 pretty. At number 10, I got the Kentucky Wildcats. I think I had them at 10 last week. They played who? Western Kentucky and Georgia State. So no moving the needle wins. Big one tomorrow night. They go to Clemson. Really looking forward to that game. It's Mark Pope. Mark Pope's first true road game at a good environment too. Clemson will be rolling for that game, and Brad Brownell and company, they've been really good so far as well. So looking forward to that one. Florida's like Cincinnati to me. Like they haven't played anybody huge. I mean, Florida State, I guess, Wichita and Wake, but they drill whoever's been in front of them. So I put Florida at number 9. Todd Golden, I guess that stuff is not a distraction. They got Virginia coming to them in the ACC SEC Challenge this week. Number 8, maybe the team of the week in college basketball. Oregon wins that Players Invitational. It's fitting that Oregon wins the NIL tournament. They beat A&M. They beat San Diego State. They beat Alabama 3 games in 5 days. And they beat Oregon State last week, who's pretty good. So Oregon is quietly putting together a really good resume. Maybe could be the front runner in the Big Ten. Them and Purdue, I think, are 1-2 right now if I had to power rank the Big Ten. At number 7, I got the Zags. I know they dropped 1 game to West Virginia. I didn't want to drop them outside the top 10 based off of what else they've done so far this year. They were overlooking us. We got them. We picked them off. But other than that, they've been pretty flawless. Wins at San Diego State by 15, who's pretty good. Baylor by 40, who's pretty good. Indiana, they win by 20. Davidson, they win by 30. So outside of the West Virginia game, Gonzaga has been the first or second best team in the country. But they do have the West Virginia loss that will not go away, baby. At number 6, I got Purdue. Purdue is death taxes Purdue, man. I told everybody they're not going anywhere just because Zach Edey left. 7-1. They go to that tournament out in Cali. They beat NC State. They beat Ole Miss. Their only loss is at Marquette. They beat Alabama. They've been solid, man. They're good. They're good. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament and probably losing the round of 32 or Sweet 16. But Purdue, Matt Painter continue to roll. Iowa State at 5. Damn, they would have been 1 if they had just held on against Auburn. Everybody said they didn't play anybody. I said, don't worry. I know what I'm getting with Iowa State. That toughness in those guards. They beat Dayton, and then they absolutely drill Colorado. Blew 20-point lead against Auburn. That's unlike Iowa State, but I think that shows how good Auburn is. Iowa State's going to be a front runner right there to win the Big 12 right behind Kansas. So Otzelberger and company, solid once again. Number 4, how can you not have this team in your top 4? Marquette, Shaka, Cam Jones. They continue to absolutely roll 8-0. They got Iowa State on Wednesday in Hilton. Oh, yes. Oh, my God, what a game. Marquette, Iowa State. This might be the best week. Fuck Feast Week. Feast Week is on neutral sites. You're getting some of the really heavy hitters here. We just talked about it. You got Alabama, Carolina, Auburn, Duke. You got Marquette, Iowa State, Kansas going to Omaha against Creighton. This week is absolutely fire, as Colby likes to say. But Marquette, man, they're resume-wise, eye test-wise, they've been extremely impressive. Wins against Purdue, Georgia, who's underrated, and then they beat Maryland on the road, that's their only loss as well. At number 3, I got Tennessee. I almost did put them up there, but I want to value Kansas's win against Duke and then all these other big wins that they've had. But Tennessee drills teams, Baylor, Virginia, Louisville, Rick Barnes and company. They continue to just dominate the competition. They lost Dalton Connect, who's pretty good, but hey, just like Purdue, they continue to reload, and their culture keeps winning. Number 2, I got the Jayhawks of Kansas, and if Auburn didn't have an unreal resume, Kansas would be 1. Kansas quietly just beat an undefeated Furman team by about 30 at the Fog on Saturday. They've beaten Duke out there in Vegas, despite almost getting jobbed by the officiating crew, throwing out Hunter Dickinson for that soft little toe tap or whatever it was. They've beaten Sparty. They've beaten Carolina. They've beaten Wilmington. A solid resume. They go to Omaha on Saturday, and they got 2 road games this week. Then they go to Missouri on Sunday. So a big week for the Jayhawks and Bill Self upcoming. But right now, I got them at number 2, 7-0. Number 1 is the Auburn Tigers, and I think this is pretty unanimous. If you don't have them at number 1, I don't think you're watching the games. They beat Houston in comeback fashion out there in Houston. They beat Iowa State in a crazy comeback. Nobody comes back on Iowa State. They did. They beat Carolina by double digits, and then they beat Memphis for an encore to win the Maui Invitational. So Auburn's at number 1. Now they go to Duke on Wednesday. I think I'm going to be on Duke, kind of to tip my hand. But Auburn right now playing their asses off. Hard to pick at what they've done so far. So that does it for my top 25. Where are we at? There we go. I'll get to the chat here in a minute, but first I got to shout out a couple sponsors because we're brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie, promo code SGPN, AG. Yeah, MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit, match up to $1,000, and a $10 casino chip today. Get on over there today. Also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college basketball, college football, and NFL. Get down on Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All righty, gents and ladies that may be in the chat. The SWAC is 6-71. That's not very good, Elliot. Mason pointing out he doesn't like Purdue, but you can't argue with the rankings. Yep. Who else do you guys think? Just scrolling through the chat. What else do we got? Elliot going there for the Drake K-State game. That's a big one in Kansas City. K-State's usually good in that event, but be a great opportunity for Drake. All right, guys. We got the pregame show coming up here in a couple hours, 6 o'clock Eastern. We're back on that schedule Monday through Friday, every single day of the college basketball season. Talk about line movement, injuries, underdog, fantasy pick'em. Reminder right there, promo code TCESGPN. Make sure you got your notifications turned on, 6 o'clock Eastern. And then, of course, the preview and pick show tonight with me, Colby, and Noah. Great time of year, guys. I appreciate you rocking with me. And this has been another edition of Mac Tonight, signing off for a couple hours. See you guys at the pregame show. You better start thinking about yours. And we are out of here.